Hi everyone! It's Miss Roberts and I have a special guest with us today. This is Mr. Matt.
Hey guys!
And we're going to be reading you a new book, Felipe and Claudette. So like last time, I do have some stop and dots planned for you. Remember, if you want to do the stop and dots, make sure you have a pencil and paper ready. And then just press pause on the video, fill out your stop and jot, and then you can press play to finish the video. If you don't want to do the stop and jots, that's okay. You can just watch the whole video through. Okay, so let's start with our sneak peek. This book is called Felipe and Claudette. And if I'm studying the front cover, I'm noticing a cat and a dog. This collar says Claudette for the dog, so I know that the dog is Claudette. So this must be Felipe. And what I'm really paying attention to is that Claudette looks like a really happy animal, and Felipe looks a little grumpy. Do you see he looks grumpy?
I would say so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So the sneak peek tells us that a funny, heartwarming read-along story about the importance of friendship. So I'm thinking that somewhere along the way that Felipe and Claudette are going to learn that their friendship really matters.
Dogs and cats can get along.
So this is Felipe and Claudette. Okay. So I'll read it and we'll show.
Okay.
On adoption day, all the pets at the animal shelter lined up for inspection. It is time, said Mrs. Barrett, the director, for us to look our best. Then one by one they were adopted until only 2 pets remained, Felipe and Claudette.
What will I do with you? Fretted Miss Barrett. Usually her pets were adopted quickly, but no, not these 2. They had been at the shelter for ages. The problem, in Felipe's opinion, was Claudette. You will never be adopted, he told the dog, because you are constantly barking. What? Claudette said. What? To be fair, Claudette did not always bark. Sometimes she tore the stuffing from her toys. Sometimes she ran in circles. And sometimes she bounced against the walls.
Okay, so your first stop and jot would be to answer this question. What do we know about Claudette? What do we know about Claudette? So what I'm noticing that we're learning about Claudette is he's kind of a crazy dog. So Felipe said, you will never get adopted because you are constantly barking. And on this page, we learn that when he's not barking, he's tearing the stuffing from her toys. She is running around in circles, and she's bouncing against the walls. So Claudette has a lot of energy. Kind of a crazy dog.
It's kind of like us right now in this whole predicament we're in.
She drove Felipe crazy. Please, he said, I am trying to think. He was trying to think about his future home. Perhaps it would be a beautiful country estate where he might lounge beside a pool, or maybe a penthouse apartment where he would eat sardines from a dainty bowl. So here, he's imagining all this over here. So your next stop and jot, what do we know about Felipe? So what I'm learning about Felipe is that he's kind of a fancy animal. He's the fancier one. So he's dreaming here of living in this really like fancy big house where he's lounging by the pool, where he gets to eat sardines, which is a kind of fish, out of a dainty bowl. So he's a fancy character.
All right, so Mr. Felipe's bougie. So we got Claudette, belched, and the dream faded. No, said Felipe, when she brought him her ball. I will not throw your little ball. It is covered in spittle. Cats do not throw. Look. Here, let me... You see that? Look at Felipe. Cats do not throw balls.
He's kind of no fun.
Yeah.
More puppies came to the shelter, then more kittens. Soon it was adoption day again. Time to look our best, cried Mrs. Barrett. They did, and they were all adopted. All except Felipe and Claudette. What will I do with you two? Worried Mrs. Barrett. Felipe thought she should worry about Claudette. You will never be adopted, he told the dog, because you snore when you are wide awake. Snork, snored Claudette. Snork, snork, snork.
To be fair, Claudette... I'm sorry, I messed that up. To be fair, Claudette not always snored. Did not always snore. Sorry about that. Sometimes she dug holes in the yard. Sometimes she chased moths. And sometimes she rolled in garbage. That's what dogs do. See?
She seems like she has a lot of fun.
Yes. More fun than the dog.
Felipe?
Felipe.
Mm-hmm. She drove Felipe mad. It would be difficult for either of them to be adopted when Claudette made such a poor impression. She brought him a toy. No, I will not play tug-of-war, said Felipe. Cats do not tug. You know what I'm noticing, Mr. Matt?
What?
Felipe seems like she really kind of cares about Claudette. Because here, she brought him a toy. And on this page, the author told us that she thought she should worry about Claudette.
Oh, so it sounds like she's coming around. All right, Mr. Felipe the cat here. More kittens came to the shelter than more puppies. Adoption day arrived again. Felipe groomed his fur and straightened his whiskers, while Claudette wagged her tail. One by one, the pets were adopted, all except Felipe and Claudette. Dear, dear, said Miss Barrett, what will I do with you two?
It was clear to Felipe that Claudette was the problem. You will never be adopted, he said, as long as you have dried dog food stuck on your nose. Slurp, said Claudette, licking her nose. Slurp, slurp, slurp. To be fair, Claudette did not always have dried dog food stuck to her nose. Sometimes she had branches stuck to her collar. Sometimes she had leaves stuck to her paws. Sometimes her whole body was covered with mud.
She drove Felipe insane. What could he do with a dog like her? She wagged her tail hopefully. No, I will not play hide and seek, said Felipe. I do not wish to be it. Anyway, it is perfectly obvious where you are hiding. So again, Felipe's just being a no-gooder. Look at him. He's not being very nice.
Another adoption day came and went. So did the puppies, so did the kittens. As usual, only Felipe and Claudette remained. Mrs. Barrett was closing the shelter when a gentleman arrived. "I wish to adopt a pet," he said. Felipe sat up straight. "We only have the two," said Mrs. Barrett. "Felipe is quiet, but a bit grumpy." "And the dog?" asked the man. "Claudette barks and chews and digs holes in the yard. Anything else?" Okay, here's your next stop and jot. I predict. I'm thinking that this man is going to adopt Claudette and maybe leave Felipe behind.
I think that might happen too.
"She runs and circles and rolls in the garbage and snores when she is wide awake." "Fine," said the gentleman. "I'll take her." And he did. I think Felipe might be lonely after this.
Oh, here we go. So Felipe was stunned. He was stunned. Who in their right mind would adopt Claudette? "You miss her, don't you?" said Miss Barrett. "Certainly not," thought Felipe. He waited for the next adoption day. And he waited, and he waited, and he waited some more. Time passed away slowly. The animal shelter seemed very quiet. He stared at Claudette's toys and her ball and her empty bowl. "I'm sure she's fine," Miss Barrett said. Felipe sighed. Not a very happy camper.
Okay, so here's your next stop and jot. If you're following along with those, it says, "I think Felipe blank." I think Felipe misses Claudette a lot.
I think Felipe is coming around.
Yeah, I think he also wishes that he would have played with her when she wanted to.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes we don't know what we have until it's gone.
Adoption day came. The puppies went. So did the kittens. Felipe hid in the back room. After a while, Mrs. Barrett joined him. She was closing the shelter when the gentleman returned with Claudette. "I am bringing her back," he said. "She is not the dog I thought she was. She doesn't play or chew or run in circles. She doesn't even bark. All she does is mope." So it seems like Claudette is sad, too. As soon as he left, Claudette began to bark. She licked Mrs. Barrett. She chased Felipe around the room. "What will I do with you two?" said Mrs. Barrett. But really, it was obvious. She adopted them. For dinner, she fed them sardines in dainty bowls. Afterward, they played hide and seek.
Felipe was happy to be it.
So they ended up together in the end of the story.
So they ended up together. That was a good one. And see
Right.
here at the end? Now they do everything together.
Okay.
Well, that's it.
Thanks for following along with us, and we will send another read aloud soon. Bye.
Stay positive.